I've got to tell you, this Judgment Day continues to blow my mind in the sense that most of the time with factions, you get to a place where you can kind of smell, okay, they've done what they came to do. Like, it's time to maybe break up the faction. And then you start seeing those teases that they're going to break up the faction. This one's fighting with that one's fighting with this one. And then all of a sudden, and I don't know any faction that has been able to pull this off like the Judgment Day has. There have been so many different times that I have watched this show and I have gone, okay, well, the Judgment Day had a good run, but now they'll separate. Dom will go over here, Balor will go over here, and it's not like catastrophic. It's just like, okay, they did what they came to do. And then somehow something happens, they rebuild, and they move forward. And it's always things that you wouldn't expect. You know, like I feel like people almost take for granted how important R-Truth was as an addition to the Judgment Day. Because we all remember how fun it was. Remember R-Truth, like, handing out the money because he was making so much money off Judgment Day merch. And he had the Tom and Nick t-shirt. And he had the t-shirt with the R-Truth, like, masking tape on the bottom of it. But those interactions, specifically, I think, between Damian Priest, who was trying to take things seriously. He was almost the Finn Balor of that time. And R-Truth, I think, benefited Damian Priest tremendously because they added this whole other element to this character, but also it made it so we were watching and we got excited about Judgment Day segments. And at the time, I think that excitement was starting to wane. You know, we weren't sitting there going, oh, I want to see what they're going to do next. Once R-Truth joined, and it was for a completely different reason. There was comedy, there was entertainment, and then I think, you know, like, the level of entertainment and comedy that Dominic provided after R-Truth kept that ball rolling. But, you know, and then adding Liv Morgan in, and just all the story of the Judgment Day is one of these stories that when it's all said and done, and it's time to break down like how this all happened, it's going to be a phenomenal thing to look at and to tell. But to watch Raw and to see that moment of the Judgment Day all standing together, all with championships. So I guess it started, and this was happening like throughout the whole show, right? It starts with that backstage with Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles. And AJ puts his glasses on, claims that the doctor's note called Dominic Mysterio a punk ass, which I don't know. I didn't see that text. And we know that Dominic's hurt, but he's still the Intercontinental Champion. And then we get to the World Tag Team Championship match, which was great. Which it was one of those reminders that, like, New Day is still a top-tier tag team in terms of working in the ring. And Finn Balor and JD McDonough are just, like, they consistently find ways to get better and better and better. And I think that that's why. I think that it was one of those matches where when the Judgment Day had won the match, I don't necessarily think that people had chosen to cheer for them before the match started. I think it was watching the match and watching JD McDonough and Finn Balor work that just made the audience fans of these guys and made the audience go, those are the guys who should be tag team champions. And it wasn't until I saw that sort of, that almost photo finish of the Judgment Day standing in the aisleway, Dominic, Finn Balor, JD McDonough, all with titles, all with pyro going off behind them, that I was like, Jesus, they're back again. Is the Judgment Day back again? And then Finn Balor, of course, goes to Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce and suggests that Roxanne Perez gets put into the tag team with Raquel Rodriguez, making her a tag team champion and thus effectively taking Liv Morgan's place as tag team champion. And we know from watching a few weeks ago, Liv Morgan is going to hate this. Which is, by the way, the same thing we thought when Rhea Ripley went away and Liv Morgan started showing up. Rhea Ripley's going to hate this. But you're watching in real time, and I feel like as a fan, you're going, yeah, this is the way it should be. I felt, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like once we got to that final backstage where the Judgment Day is all standing together and everyone, JD, Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, Raquel, and Roxanne, all are wearing gold. All are sitting there like in agreement, hesitation to the agreement, but agreement. You're going, we're back here. We're back here to a point where the Judgment Day is on top again. The Judgment Day all has championships. The Judgment Day all have relevant storylines. The Judgment Day are all getting me interested. And I'm watching going like, the fact that the fans cheered so hard when JD McDonough and Finn Balor won the tag team championship, I'm going, if this does like collapse, if there is a split somewhere in the Judgment Day, then who's the babyface? Who's the heel? Like, I would think originally I was like, okay, the move is Finn Balor and Roxanne Perez are the heels, and Dominic and Liv are the babyfaces. You turn Dominic and Liv babyface, and that's the split of the Judgment Day. And part of me wonders, right, is this like, no, we're going to go in a different direction, or did they go, hey, Liv Morgan is legitimately injured. She got a separated shoulder. This story that we were telling with them is no longer the story that we can tell because Liv's off TV. So let's go in this different direction. And the Judgment Day is somehow strong enough that in the middle, and not even in the middle, towards the end of a Judgment Day breakup story, you've now weaved over in this direction, and you've now got this story of the Judgment Day like as strong as they've ever been, and on top, and somehow, and correct me if I'm wrong, we believe it. Somehow we're sitting there going like, yeah, the Judgment Day is that faction again. And it's and I just don't think any faction besides the Judgment Day could actually get that done. I think if it wasn't the Judgment Day doing it, we'd be sitting here, we'd be fatigued, we'd be going like, I don't even know who these guys are anymore. Are they babyfaces? Are they heels? Are they breaking up? Are they not breaking up? Are they winners? Are they losers? But they've figured out that group where everyone in there, and maybe it's because Dominic has become such a strong performer, maybe it's because Finn Balor is so underrated as a performer, that you're sitting there going like, yeah, the Judgment Day is it. It was just a real cool visual to see, and the fact that the Judgment Day, after all this time, we're able to be reinvented again. And we land here. Let me go to Frank here in Pennsylvania. What's up, Frank?
Hey
Man.
Congratulations, Sam, and congratulations to all the Busted Open Nation. We finally got what we wanted.
It's amazing.
One, I want to say, I am really hoping that they allow Raquel and Roxanne to go out there. The difference in styles, I think they're going to make a great tag team.
Yeah.
I think they can do some interesting things with the size difference, and I'm always interested in that. And I like how WWE has done a good job over the last year to 18 months trying to keep championships in stories so they don't fall by the wayside. I know they got a couple that they're still kind of like building up, like the men's U.S. championship and the women's U.S. championship should get more time. But it's also nice how they're sprinkling out the championship matches through the PLEs and on the TV shows, so we're not getting just championship matches all the time, and it makes them seem a little bit more special. Plus the power kind of dynamic that the championships now have that relate to the story. It's like, hey, we're the champions, we don't have to do this or we don't have to do that. It makes them worth something again, which it's nice to see, instead of somebody just holding a title being like, that's the champion and that's it.
I would agree with that. And I think part of it is Seth, like, kind of describing the championship as, I want this championship because it's a power position, it's a power play, and that's how we dictate power. But also, I think the idea that if the Judgment Day aren't all standing there with titles, I don't think we feel the same way about them. I think if the Judgment Day just looks strong, but they're not all champions, you don't feel as, secure in this idea that they're back to being winners. And I think that goes to speak to the strength of all these championships. And that can be very difficult to do with multiple championships. And I think sometimes WWE gets it right. And I think you're right. Sometimes WWE gets them wrong. Like, there are times where the titles really do accentuate what's going on. And then there are other times where we forget who the champion even is. So it's nice to see it on the other end of that. Thank you, Frank. Let me go to Reggae Dog in South Carolina. What's up, dog?
Bro, this is Reggae Dad, man. Reggae Dog.
Look, animal.
My dog?
The animal AJ Batista has decided your name is Reggae Dog. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, Sam. When I call into your show, it'll be Reggae Dog from now on.
Good. Good.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, congrats, bro. Congrats to the whole team. You know, I've been down since day one-ish. I'm your boy. And you know what I like best about the start? It's right off the top of your show.
Yeah.
You came in and you said, it was like you were speaking right from my heart when you said, basically you just said you were unapologetically positive about reggae. About wrestling, excuse me.
Reggae too. Reggae rules too.
Yes, man. Okay. But you know what? That's my thing too, bro. I've been a fan of this my whole life, in and out during different times of my emotional growth, but always came back to my first love of wrestling, brother. And it doesn't matter. Even when it's bad, it's good. You know what I'm saying? Just sometimes I'm sitting here with my kids, and I'm looking and I'm seeing right now, oh boy, Bully is going to tear this to shreds tomorrow. But they're sitting there laughing and loving it. So what's the difference? That's what I'm here for, those type of experiences, brother. So I'm glad that you're
absolutely, man.
Unapologetically positive.
I love it. I love wrestling.
I mean?
But also, okay, so like, do you see this, because you're watching it, you're watching every single week, you're watching everything. Do you see this as a pivot where they're like, okay, maybe we were going to break up the Judgment Day, but now we're not going to break them up at all? Or do you think this is one of those like red herrings where they are still moving in the direction of we're going to split this group, but now we're going to make it hurt?
You know, that's a good question. And maybe they don't even know the answer. When I see him with that shit-eating grin and that little twinkle in his eye, yeah, I do think that at some point he's going to blow things up. But, you know, they already blew it up. When they lost Rhea and Damian, you know, I was like, this ain't, these guys, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold it. But here they are, back with all the gold.
Yeah.
I mean, look, a thread running through the entire show, the flagship show, was pretty much all about them. And, I mean, I got to tell you, even J.D. McDonough made a believer out of me over these last couple months. When you see that guy work and what he puts into a match and how he can make guys look like $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, we started with all the jokes about what he looks like and all that kind of stuff. But I tell you what, even J.D. Judgment Day McDonough made a believer out of me.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I think you're right. I think it's been that series of incidents. I think that the rise of appreciation for J.D. McDonough has done a lot for this group, but I think that you're right too. I think that was a good point that Reggae whoever brought up, which is maybe they don't even know. You know, maybe it's this thing where it's like, yeah, it's time to split up the Judgment Day, and then Finn Balor and J.D. McDonough win the tag team championship, get a huge babyface reaction, and they go, maybe we're not going to break up this group right now. Maybe it's not time to break up this group. I really hope that it's not like, no, we're gonna make you fall in love with the Judgment Day one more time, and then just as you're ready to see one more run, that is when we're gonna make you say goodbye.